Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming into Heart to Hands Roundtable. My name is Jalynn Lane. I'm a Linkage to Care Navigator at Heart to Hand Inc. If you're not familiar with Heart to Hand, we are a 501c3 community-based organization located in Largo, Maryland, and we provide support services for those living with HIV and other STIs. So some of the services that we provide is our at-home HIV testing kit. We actually had an unboxing video, so you can check that out on our Instagram page and Facebook page of what it looks like, and you can get your results right then and there in 20 minutes. And then we also have our safe sex kits where you can order condoms to your home and you can customize those orders. So that's only for the DMV area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And we also have case management, PrEP, which is a medication to prevent HIV, along with our support groups. So we have men, women, and trans support groups at Heart to Hand. And we're doing this roundtable just to educate everyone on trans and pronouns and just basically what it means to be inclusive, sex positive, and responsible. So Kaniya is our host.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. I'm Kaniya, the navigator. And this week's topic, we're going to talk about, because Friday is Trans Day of Remembrance. So this week, we're going to talk about Trans Day of Remembrance and, why do we celebrate it? We're going to talk about the different trans murders that have taken place of trans people of color this year. So I want to start out by asking, what does Trans Day of Remembrance mean to you, and why do you think that it's important that we celebrate it each year?
So I can go ahead and start, and I'm Cydney for everyone who's watching. To me, Trans Day of Remembrance is really just commemorating the unfortunate, lives lost, trans lives lost to trans violence and, very specific negative, hateful trans violence. I know that for me, honestly, before coming to Heart to Hand, I really wasn't aware of TDOR. Like, I don't feel like it's something that you hear about in the media a whole lot. So I was happy that, once I did come to Heart to Hand, that I was able to find out about that and really learn a lot more about it. But I think that it's so special and really needed to bring awareness and attention to the violence that trans women and trans people in general face simply because of the way that they identify. So I think really bringing attention to it and shining a light on it, and then also making a plan to combat that negativity and that violence is the most important thing for me as it comes to TDOR.
I think it's important that we celebrate Theodora just to bring awareness. Like Cydney, um, I didn't have much awareness before coming to Heart to Hand about everything that happens in the trans community. Um, and I think it's just important that we identify um, the things that has happened, because I think it is a part of the fight that we're fighting as Black people. We cannot say that we want to end racism without identifying all groups. So I think it's important that we highlight what's going on in each community, and we, educate ourselves, and we help be a part of that fight. So I think that's why we should celebrate.
Well, for me, I think it's important because I think it does bring awareness to it brings awareness to everybody, like in the world and in the country, that these things are actually happening. Because I think for a long time, I mean, it's not like that it just started happening, but it's been happening, but it's always been like, brushed under the rug. Like they didn't always have Trans Day of Remembrance. So I think it's a good idea to have because it does bring awareness. My only concern is that I just wish that it could bring awareness more than just that one day, if you kind of feel what
Yeah.
I'm saying, because I kind of feel like that if we were to put the same energy, if we were to put the same energy like how we put into Trans Day, that one day of remembrance, if we put that same energy into when another or a trans person of color is murdered, because those are mostly the ones that, always go brush under the rug. Not saying that, all trans lives don't matter, but the trans people of color, we have it a little worse. So I feel like that, I think the day is very important because I have lost friends due to being violence, being killed for whatever reasons. And yeah, I just feel like that I wish it could be more energy put into it when it actually happens, and not that we have to wait until November the 20th to talk about these people. And and
Yeah.
then that makes everybody else be a part of the conversation on that one day, but not every day or not every time something like that happens. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I know that I've had to kind of check my own privilege. I think as a cis woman, it's easy to, let that be out of sight, out of mind. Like you don't hear about it. So therefore I'm not going to say you think it's not an issue, but you don't actively think about it. So I agree. I think if we were able to put that type of energy and focus and care into, being allies, caring about our trans brothers and sisters all year instead of just that one day, I think that things could hopefully be a little bit better.
Another thing I know that like last night, and I think that we'll get into that later on in the conversation. But before I forget, like last night I was well yesterday I always record The View every day, so I always end up going back watching it at nighttime because I really only like the hot topics part and the guests that they have on there. So last night when I was watching it, I was up all night because it was a black guy on there. His name is Emmanuel Acho. I don't know if y'all heard of him, but he used to
The
play for
name
the
sounds
Philadelphia
familiar.
Eagles. And then, once he stopped playing for them, he went into the being a sports analyst or whatever the case may be. So, with the whole thing with the football team kneeling. So now what he has done was he has like 10 series. I think it's such a good idea. It's like 10 series. He turned the 10 series into a book, and it's called um, Having an Uncomfortable Conversation with a Black Man. So even me, like I was up all night, I probably watched like 5 different episodes of it. But he did an episode where he had the police officers from this little small town. And then he did one with a preacher, a pastor, a white pastor, because racism does start in the church. So I just thought that was real interesting because I feel like that a lot of times people, I think that that's something that could possibly be done in the trans community. It's about, I think that we always talk about having a conversation, but no one ever has took the step up to do. It has been done, but I don't think it's been done big enough. And like with him, I think it was a very good idea because he asked them a lot of uncomfortable questions. And I think that is something that could be done in the trans community, and it kind of gave me like an idea because I think it was like because the conversation, I think that when he was, especially with the police officers, like with the white pastor, that wasn't bad because he had a mixed church already. So he,
Mhm.
but with the police officers, he even asked them questions. Like one question that he asked them that I thought was so important that I could relate to was because he asked them, he was like, so it was a place, I forgot the name of the place, but it was like 60,000 people in the population. Less than 1% made up Black people. So he asked
Mhm.
all of them, have they ever had, first he asked them when the last time they had like a Black person over to eat. One guy was like, well, before the pandemic, and then he started stuttering, and then he's like, well, I can't even remember.
Wow.
So at first he
Mhm.
was like, before the pandemic, but no.
Right.
So then he asked the questions that this question I found very interesting was when he asked them, have they ever had a conversation with a group of Black guys, young Black guys, like, in the neighborhood. And to me, it was like, all of them said no. So I kind of thought about that when it came to as far as like with the trans community. Like, there's the ways that, we could probably, though that is something that we probably could do. That's a conversation that we probably could have because a lot of people have this misconception without ever having a conversation.
Yeah, and I also think sometimes people, like you said, the police officers got uncomfortable. I feel like that's an issue in our community where people just try to separate themselves. But I'm just like, at the end of the day, people are people. It doesn't mean that you associate with a certain lifestyle or anything like that. You don't have to, you don't have to distance yourself or be disrespectful. And I think that's the problem. And that's the problem we see with the police. Like they don't really understand, some of the movements of Black men, and they just automatically think, let me get the gun out. And I find that in our community, when you're interacting with someone who is trans, I would even say cisgender men specifically, will, distance themselves and try to make it known that they don't, I'm not sexually active. And my whole thing is like, why do you have to make that separation? Why do you have to make that known? Like, why can't you treat people the way you want to be treated or like anybody else? I just don't get it. And I think, like you said, it does need to be brought to the forefront, and maybe that can be an idea where we hit the streets and ask some people like those uncomfortable questions to get down to the bottom line why they think the way they think.
And I also feel like even with the trans community, some people are kind of like, oh well, I don't care, I don't want to talk about it, it doesn't bother me, blah, 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 whatever. But those people are still a problem as well. And I realized that when the one police officer, he had just retired. He started to like just coach some type of soccer or something like that. And he actually said that. And the guy asked him, was like, do you miss your job? And he was like, no, because I don't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I'm glad that I'm out. So, the same thing with the trans community. You have some people like, I have family members who are like, I don't care, you just do you, or like, I don't care, that's your business. But I still think people like that are a problem too, because it's like, if you educate yourself about it, then if you overhear someone else, then you can kind of educate them about it as well too. So it can be like so.
Yeah, it makes me think of that statement when people say, I don't see color. I was like, well, that's the problem why you don't see color. The reason you don't see color is part of the problem. You're ignoring what's happening. And if you don't, if you just do you, like you said, if you just do you, that's just ignoring what's happening in the community. That's ignoring having that education of, what, pronouns or lifestyle or just basic information that you should know. So, yeah.
And then I want to talk about the murders that happened. I think so far this year, like as in us planning the actual TDOR event, like we've probably been planning it. I'm going to say for like, I'm going to say like 3 weeks, maybe a month. I'm going to say a month. When we first started planning it, it was 32 deaths. Within a month, now it went up to 34. The only good thing about it is that it has not it has not been any here in our area. So I haven't heard anything about none of the people that we know that we looked up, none of the information that we found hasn't been here, but it hasn't been not too far away. It's been in New Jersey, been in Ohio. You have it's been like it's been 34 different trans murders. So like, I'm not gonna go too much into it, but and it's not just trans women, That's not, that's not what they means. It's for trans men, trans women, and people who are gender non-conforming. Like they are all included in that day. Because there was a trans man that was killed in Oklahoma. And I think a lot of times that trans men also get brushed under the rug more than what trans women get brushed under the rug. Like it has even been this year has even been an incident where I saw a trans man get killed by the police.
I saw that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like when things like that happen, it's like I think that's when the situation comes in. It's kind of like when people be like Black Lives Matter, but it's like you can have a trans person that get killed, and you don't see any rallies. Like he was killed by the police.
Right.
You didn't see any rallies. You didn't see any protests. You didn't see any of that. But then on the other hand, when you had George Floyd, it's like the whole country kind of went crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that people have to realize that it does, like being trans, it does get real frustrating because you have thoughts like, you actually have thoughts like, because one of my friends made a post on Facebook and I agree with what she said, but I think that it's the kind of post, it's like the things that she posted already and then saying that and the way that she said it, I think people took it out of context, but I definitely understood what she said. She pretty much said that she didn't care about Black men getting killed because they didn't care about us getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
And it does make you feel like that, and I have felt like that, but it's like it's kind of like hard because I do have brothers. So I can't just say I don't care about, because it could be one of my brothers to get killed by a police officer or anything like that. But it do kind of make you feel like that. And then at the same time, a lot of times is Black men who are killing us.
Right.
So then when you think about it, it's like, well, the police is killing Black men, their actions might be saving us because that's who killing us. So, I mean, it's not good to think that way, but like when you get so frustrated and you see how things are not equal, then it does make you feel that way.
No, I totally agree with your frustration because I definitely kind of feel that way as well. Like a lot of times we're fighting in the street for Black men and, you know, Black Lives Matter. But when it comes to protecting Black women or trans women, it just seems like we're neglected in that sense. It's just like, okay, like even when I think about the whole Megan Thee Stallion thing, like how many Black men were just like, just taking up for that. I'm just like, you taking up for violence that a Black man put on a Black woman. It made me think a different way about Black men. And it's frustrating because it's just like, dang, we out here protesting for y'all and y'all can't even stand up for us. So I definitely, you know, agree with that frustration. I can understand her point.
Yeah. And Kaniya,
And then when you look at protests, you have to watch who's on the front lines.
right.
Always LGBT people, it's always trans people that's on the front line.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you. Like, how do you feel about I think recently I've been seeing more all Black Lives Matter, or people being intentional and saying trans Black Lives Matter. Do you feel like, because I know for the regular Black Lives Matter stuff, over the summer I had felt at a point like, okay, this is people just posting it to be politically correct, like people don't really believe it, blah blah blah. Do you think that that shift is moving us in the right direction, or do you feel like it's not genuine?
I think that the thing, what I've seen when it comes to when people say all lives matter, all trans lives matter, all Black lives matter, or Black lives matter, I kind of think that those kind of things are kind of like still bridging us apart.
Yeah.
Because even with Black Lives Matter, like they don't even seem like it's real. So it's kind of like that is kind of why people with different groups have started saying certain things, because you got to look at how, like when Jalynn mentioned women, you got to look at how the whole thing with Breonna Taylor, this happened before George Floyd. Like I have been watching that story. I had seen that on The View prior before George Floyd.
Yeah.
So then it's like, when this happens to him, and then everything goes crazy.
The whole country is,
Now you want to add Breonna Taylor in the conversation. So I totally do agree with that, but I can't really say whether I disagree or agree with the whole different trans lives matter, Black trans lives matter. I don't know. I can't, because I guess like when you have different groups of people, that are frustrated, they are going to start to have their own agendas. But I feel like that even with the Black Lives Matter, being the fact on who it was started by, it kind of just really kind of baffles me that everybody is not included in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, they are a part of the LGBT, so it's like
Right.
everybody included. I don't get it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's basically what I was gonna say. I feel like I don't know, part of me feels like, well, it can't be 100% genuine until it doesn't have to be said. You know what I mean? Like until that distinction doesn't need to be made anymore. So,
But then last night, okay, so when I was watching the thing with the men, so even like that, they talked about the Black Lives Matter.
mhm.
The white pastor said, I don't know if he was one of the police. One of them. He asked the question that about the Black Lives Matter. So it was the police officer. He's confused whether the Black Lives Matter is a campaign or is it a movement. That's what he was confused about. So, but when you think about it, it is confusing to people. Like it really is because you got to think about, like he said, it's a whole election going on. So nobody's going
Right.
to be able to know whether it's a campaign, or whether it's a movement until after we get past the election. And then that's what they was basically saying. So I totally understood what he was saying because I mean, if it's not a, if I mean, if everybody was included in it, then maybe it would be clear as day that it's a movement. But if everybody isn't included in it, then that kind of seems like a campaign. You see what I'm saying? Like Joe Biden had his campaign, Donald Trump had his campaign. They neither one of them have a movement. So, because
Mhm.
they wasn't together. So I kind of feel like that until the Black Lives Matter includes everybody, it's never going to appear to be a movement.
Yeah. And I think also we have to just stop, just as a country, have to stop politicizing these statements because, like, I don't know, like when I first heard about Black Lives Matter like years and years ago, I'm like, why is this so politically charged? Like it's a statement, it's a true statement. Why are people having so many feelings behind it? So I think things can go further when we are finally able to separate the political tension that they put behind these inherently true statements that should be true on its own, regardless of what you believe, what your politics are, or anything like that. So that's just my
And
little
I
two
think that's
cents.
basically what he was saying, especially for the, like,
Yeah.
I mean, for the past 4 years, that's all we've been thinking about is politics.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause, I mean, who our president was. That's all that we were focused on. So yeah, that's definitely true what you said. Like it's very, very true. Very true. So the next thing that I want to go into is how do you feel allies can help violence of transgender people?
Well, I think we've touched on it a little bit, but I think really people who don't necessarily identify as trans need to me, be intentional about learning what trans people go through, be intentional about, you know, being there and speaking up for them in the face of, other people, whether that be peers who don't understand or people who are trying to be negative against trans people. I think it's your duty as an ally to speak up, on behalf of them and let people know what's right, to be that teacher because I don't know, I kind of equate it to like, have you ever had like non-black people ask you about black stuff and you kind of feel like, well, it's not my job to teach you about this stuff. And I kind of feel like it's the same thing. I don't necessarily think that it's the job and the role of trans people to be the teacher for everybody. I think people need to do their due diligence in learning about it and educating other people and, just really being better on all fronts. So to me, that's what allyship really means.
To me, my thoughts align with Cydney. I think advocacy is so important when it comes to stopping the violence, and like Cydney said, stopping, educating yourself and also checking yourself, but checking the people around you. So whether it's your family member, be like, I even heard it myself where family members will say, "Okay, so what? Um, such and such is a dude now." Stopping it right there.
Right.
It's not that, and checking them and educating them, and, not associating with people who choose to be ignorant. I think that's a part of it too, because a lot of times I've even seen, people get in relationships and their partners are homophobic or transphobic and they stay with them, but then they have a partner, they have a friend who's a part of the LGBTQ community. And it's like you can't do that,
You can't do both.
you can't separate it. So it's either you want to educate him or not deal with him, or you're going to stick by your friend, because you can't choose to be on one side when you're with certain people. It has to be in your all everyday life. So I think advocacy is so important, and you need to daily walk with it and continue to educate yourself and educate those around you.
And for me, I agree with everything that y'all said was definitely true. But I think that also it's a lot of little things that goes on, that a lot of sometimes people don't really realize that's dangerous and harmful. It's kind of like if I'm going to the store and I'm like, and that I'm trans, people don't understand how dangerous it is to tell somebody else, what I am. That is very dangerous. And I think that people get a laugh, like it's a ha-ha, or and then also is things like, then every time that I feel like that every time a trans woman of color gets murdered, it's always associated with sex work. So for me, I think a lot of the stigma has to go away. And then I think that, and honestly, I feel like that when it comes to like transphobia, I've done a lot on transphobia. And for real, when it comes to transphobia, I see transphobia more coming from Black cisgender women. I see it all the time on the internet. I see it. Now I don't have people around me who I see it from, but that is who, and I hate to even say that because then I don't want the people around me to think that I think that about them. But no, that's not the case, because I wouldn't even associate myself with anybody who I felt was like that. But I do, that's where I see it come from. Then when it comes to, with the guys, when it comes to guys, that's something totally different, because a lot of them are just mad at themselves for being attracted to them. It's a black guy that's on Instagram. His name is Conscious Lee. I don't know if y'all ever seen him before. But Conscious Lee, he do a lot of debates about political stuff. He is like a big ally of the LGBT and the trans community, but he's married. And I know that he's heterosexual. He's married, he got a child, and this and that. But he made a video, and he put on the video, he was like, he don't understand why Black men get mad because they're attracted to trans women. It's not trans women's fault that they are attractive. And he got a lot of this when I first seen that video, people started sharing it, and I started following him. But he's a very big ally for the LGBT community and the trans community. But those are the kind of things that take place. So to me, I would say just even if I feel like for me, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. You don't have to. I'm not saying that everybody should be an ally. If it's something that you don't agree with, that's fine, but just don't speak on it. Don't think that it's okay for you to go and tell people what this person is or what that person is, or, because that gets dangerous. It gets very, very dangerous. And I think a lot of times that is what happens. I know, Jalynn, you said you want to talk about the situation that was in the gas station. That is one of those situations where that happened on how the young lady got attacked by all these guys, because I doubt very seriously, like this is a little small person. To me, they were very passable. So it's kind of like, I don't think that all these big guys would have came and just attacked this one little person that looked like a female unless she
Had
told
that
them
other
that that's
lady
the mate.
not.
Yeah. So those are the kind of situations that I'm kind of like talking about. Even with the same thing happened with the girl in Texas last year when she got into a fender bender. Everybody out there fighting her, beating her because the girl said that that's a man. So everybody felt like it was okay to attack her. Then, like a month later, she gets attacked. Now she gets attacked, but the thing about that situation, this is kind of like this is how I got it. It seems so crazy to me because it was like, okay, well, she got attacked, she got beat real bad. Everybody was like, justice. I can't remember her name, but she got her justice. The guy got arrested. Like, people really created a GoFundMe account for this guy to get out of jail. Like, he went to jail, he got a very expensive burn that he probably wouldn't have been able to get out on his own.
Right.
But people really created a GoFundMe account and he got out. And then like a month later, the girl was killed. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I don't know whether he killed her or not. That was never said or anything like that. But, people did. So you never know who did kill her, because if you have a group of people that's raising all this money for a GoFundMe account, it could have very well been anybody that donated to that GoFundMe account, because that's how passionate and they felt about it. So I think that a lot of times that, in order to be an ally, you have to educate yourself. That's the first thing. Because you have to have an open mind. You have to educate yourself. And if it's something that you don't know or you want to know, just ask. But just ask in a respectful way. I always tell people all the time, like, even if you don't know someone's gender, like, ask them. Like, I think that anybody on this earth would feel okay with somebody asking them what do they identify as versus assuming it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have some people like, and everybody like, just like when the trans man he's not like, okay, the trans man that I had on my live when I did transphobia, like, he was non-binary. So like, it's so much that goes to it. So like, just ask a question. Just ask what someone identify as, or just ask them what you want to know, or just get to know a trans person if you never have, because I'm sure that it's not going to be as bad as you think it is. I'm sure that you'll get an understanding of it. Like, trust me, like, I had to go through this with my family until I started coming around. They couldn't get it. So.
Yeah.
Anything? Oh, so what else did you want to add? Anything else to it, Jalynn?
I did want to add another way that you can be an ally is, I know a lot of us women, we just give our clothes away to the value village. But one thing that I've been trying to do is stuff that I don't wear, because a lot of us, we buy stuff from Fashion Nova that we can't fit. Save that stuff and donate it to trans women. I'm adamant about not just donating it to like a value village or a donation spot. Donate it to different organizations who assist women suffering from domestic violence or trans women in violence. Give those clothes away to people in need. I'm not saying people who go to value village are not in need, but make sure you direct your stuff in a certain way, like makeup, things like that. That's another way that you can help as well.
Yeah, I had all these clothes, like all of these, like 4 bags of clothes and shoes. And my friend, she had just started her own organization in Virginia. It's called the Southeastern Regional Transgender Resource Center or whatever. So I had these clothes piled up in my living room for probably 3 months. And I was determined that I was not going to get rid of them until I took them down there to her. But so when I went down there over the weekend, I did take them to her or whatever. And it was a couple of the girls that have been coming there. And like they were so happy, like I'm looking like, well, I mean, I couldn't fit the stuff anyway, but like just to see how happy they were, because my friend, she was telling me, well, she's just moved, one girl just moved from North Carolina, she was trying to get herself together, she was on the right path and all of that. So I think that, I think that that would be good. Like that would really be good. Like to donate to different. Like I know one of my friends that I work for at the health department. And I know you said you want to talk about resources. Like I can't think of the name of the place, but I do know that she works for she was working for Damien Ministries.
Mhm.
And what she did was she was a health impact specialist like me. She opened up a place where they started having clothes and things like that in there, right? Um, they started having clothes and everything, right? And so what they did was they set it up like a store. They set
Mhm.
it like a store. So when they go in there and they go shop, it's free, but it kind of makes them have a good experience. Some days they do their makeup and things like that or whatever. So I think those kind of things are also good as well too, because I mean people be struggling, like especially LGBT people and especially trans people, because their families be like, no.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
maybe that's something we can adopt at Heart to Hand and just doing like a clothes drive or a makeup drive or just a drive in general where we donate stuff to those of the LGBTQ community and of course trans women. So
I think that would be great. I was actually gonna ask um for, resources like that in the area if anyone, who's watching wants to participate in anything like that.
I haven't heard of any, but I think that'd
Hmm.
be an amazing resource if we can start doing that. Even with the makeup class. I mean, I want to come myself, but
Right.
a makeup or a hair class, like, cause can I be having the look? So I'm like, look, if I knew how to do that, I know that would
Okay.
change somebody's life of how to do certain things, especially when you're adjusting and you're just learning. I think that would be so helpful. So maybe it's something
Hmm.
we can do at our day.
We have a lot of young girls. I think a lot of young girls come to her resource center. It's a lot of young girls. So, she kind of guide them in the right direction. So before, I think that's pretty much everything. So is there anything that y'all want to leave us with before we end? Well, I do have I do want to give out information about the TDOR, but I'll let you guys, say your final thoughts or whatever.
Well, I can go. I just want to, thank y'all for this conversation and also just let everybody know to please continue to educate yourself. Please continue, learning and being intentional about knowing and understanding the things that trans people, non binary people go through. And yeah, just continue to be an ally and here to end the violence against trans people, especially trans people of color.
And I just want a second note on that one. But no, definitely check yourself, educate yourself, like Cydney said, and see how you can be a vessel or a resource to those who are non-binary and trans people.
And I agree with everything that you guys said, and I just want to add that, also when you hear of a trans person getting murdered or beat or killed or any of that stuff, don't stop automatically assuming that this was someone who did not tell the person, because I know that that's the first thing that comes about. And
Hmm.
it's 2020, and that is truly not what it is.
People be knowing.
Yep.
Yes. And so that's just one thing I like to throw out there, because I know that the first thing I see all the time on my timeline on social media is, oh well, she probably didn't tell him. And sometimes it can be a trans person that's not even really passable. And it's like, really? So that's all you have to say is that this person didn't tell them. So yeah, so and just stop judging. Don't
Yep.
automatically judge. Stop judging people, and that goes for anybody. Like, don't judge anybody. Get to know somebody for yourself. And the last thing that I want to say is that also on Friday, November the 20th, we will be doing our annual TDOR event, but this year it will be virtual. Which I'm mad about because last year was like y'all wasn't there last year, was you?
Mm-mm.
No.
So nice. It was so nice. But this year it's gonna be nice this year, but we're just not gonna be in person. But it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be on Friday, November the 20th. The time is from 11 to 12:30. We should be having the flyers out. I'm gonna say by Friday. I mean, I didn't really think that. I mean, I know it's kind of last minute, but I mean, it is online. So
Yeah.
we should have the flyers out by Friday, and it will be next Friday from 11 to 12:30. We have we have nice guest speakers. People are going to tell their stories. Some people are going to talk about, Trans Day of Remembrance. We have we have someone that's going to be. She was at my T door last year. Y'all wasn't there. Her name is Gibby. She's like she likes telling her age, so I know she wouldn't be. She's like 67 years old, and so she's been born and raised in DC like her whole life. So I think that I always like talking to her and like hearing from her. So like she's going to speak about as far as with the violence, how it was then and how it is now. So it's going to be really good. So it's going to be Friday, November the 20th, and it's going to be from 11 to 12:30, and the flyers should be out by Friday.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it'll be posted on
Listen.
Heart to Hands page, and I'm partnering with Us Helping Us, so it'll be on their page, and it'll probably be everywhere, anywhere we can share
Awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just want to thank everyone for joining in on our panel discussion this week, and everyone have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah.